Well, I had a request the other day to try out some Waterman pens. And I have lots of Waterman pens, but and that would take even longer than my videos usually are, so we'll just grab these, try these out. You see modeled 12s. There might be a 14 in here somewhere. Okay, can we make it light up? Okay, I haven't tried these pens in a long time, so let's just see how they work. This nib looks a little bent, a little wavy. So rather nice and fine. What do I have to say about this nib that would interest any of you? Pretty sweet. It's more than that, but it's pretty sweet. This is really a lovely, lovely ripple pattern. I think it's most of the 12s I have are sort of wood grain modeled, but this is, I think, the only one that I have that's really ripple-y. This is almost exactly the sort of nib you'd expect on a Waterman 52 from the 20s. It's exactly what you expect it to be. Perfectly flexible, a little broad to begin with. I tend to like my nibs to be a little more fine than that. What's this one? Ooh, 14. So the 12 and the 14, the 12, 13, and 14 pens all had the same diameter barrel and cap. Where they differed was the hole that is split in or put into the feed and the nib. Quite often you find lots of number 4 nibs that are cracked in the stern area there because someone crammed them into the wrong pen, the wrong feed, the wrong section. Damn them. How many times have I done that? I don't want to say countless, because it is countable, I'm sure. Okay, what about this nib? Very, very springy. I'm just admiring the patterning on this one. This is very fine. This is very wet noodly. Number 2 nib. Boing, 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 spring, boing, boing, boing. But it's also very fine. Sweet. Post-it. Thank you. Crack and cap lip. Whatever. This is very springy too, not as springy, but the fine is really quite lovely. It's very smooth. Sometimes fine nibs are a little scratchy. Really nice. We're about a quarter of the way through. Now this is more wood grainy. Some of these are just blotchy. some are ripple, and one is ripple and one is sort of wood grainy. The rest are more blotchy. So these two are like siblings. The orange is almost exactly the same color black. They're mixed nicely. Sometimes you get a pen that has lots of black and a little tiny bit of red, and other times it's the other way. And most of the time it's sort of half and half. Again, very springy. Boing, boing, boing. Pretty nice return on this. Good. Yay. I can see why these are in my collection. I have a feeling, I'm guessing this is going to be like the one I just showed you. Ooh! It's very, very sharp. This is similar to the Waterman Commando nib that I have. It sort of really doesn't want to get broad. It's barking back at me, but it has a really sweet you really have to work at this one to make it. It doesn't want, well, I don't want to say it doesn't want to do that, but it's really an interesting experience. It's saying, please let me put my legs back together again. It's, or I really don't want to. It's like a really shy person in school, and they never say a word. But when something strikes them funny, they have this really big laugh. And you look around the room trying to find where it came from, and it's from the person that never talks. That's sort of what this is like. It's whispering, whisper, whisper, and then when you press down, it just... But it doesn't want to do that. It wants to clam up again. It's really, I wish you were here to experience this, because I can't put it into words. It doesn't work. This is why you really need to be here. Now, this is this person's twin brother or something. The one that I just had, their mother was a psychologist and fed one Wheaties and the other one got Fruit Loops or something. I don't know. Two completely different diets, and this one sort of starts out. I thought it would be more flexible. It looks like it would be. It starts out loud and only gets a little louder, but that was surprising. It has a sort of a stub, flexible stub nib, and it's sort of the opposite of the one I just showed you. The other one, wants to be a fine nib. This wants to be a broad nib and is happy to get louder. The other one really doesn't want to until the joke or whatever builds up until it has to come out. This one has a little band that's keeping a crack from getting worse. I think I just slipped that on top. Oh, it has a very boingy, part of this pen's flexibility might be due to trauma that the nib had. Does it have may have a crack. Yes, it does. It's has a little tiny crack, or it wants to be a crack, that's coming out from the tine on this side. And as you can see, the nib is all bent and screwed up. It probably landed on the floor at one point, in 1921, and the nib went like this. Here's the feed, and then someone with their pliers bent it back, so it sort of does this now. And with the burnisher, I might be able to tweak that, so I'm going to leave this one out. Maybe I can see if I can fix that with the burnisher and my sort of anvil. This has a crack in it, as you can see. It's like the source of the Nile. And, oh well, what does this nib have? This nib is slightly stubby. I just told you about the footprint. The footprint of this one enlarged would be like that. It's pretty fine on the side stroke. It's thick on the downstroke. Can you see that it's that? But it's also very, well, it's pretty springy. It's a nice, strong springiness. It doesn't have any, there's no fragility there. This is going to be this is going to be like that one that likes to laugh. This is its soulmate. I mean, it doesn't like to laugh. When it laughs, it goes, "Pa!" Except much louder than that. Ha! H-A. Otherwise, it is completely quiet. So those two nibs, oh, look at that. There's little chips. What do we have here? It says 14. Is it a 4? Well, it's the number 2 nib. Oh, it says 2. It doesn't say 4. I'm seeing things. This might be like the one I just showed you. It's sort of, no, this one laughs a little longer and a little louder, and this is not quite like that other, the one that I just showed you, but this is, again, a typical Waterman number 2 nib that you expect to find, except it's finer. What about this one? 12. This looks like it's going to be a typical number 2. It's actually stiffer than I thought. God, I like these pens. The pens that are flexible only when you make them. Another one like this. Ooh. This is really, really fine. You can see that it's making a line. God. See why I have to have so many of these? They're all so different. Well, I don't know, maybe you don't see them being different at all. Maybe you say, oh, gee, here, they all write the same to me. But they are different. I'm telling you, they're different. A wine expert, I might say, I like red wine. I don't care what kind. I just drink it to get drunk. Okay, this is a very early Waterman nib. The really, the word Waterman is almost a circle. It goes like this, Waterman, rather than like that. So an early nib, nice and rubbery, springy. Is this a 5? A 15? Wow. This with a really nice number 5 nib. This is thicker. This pen is a wider diameter. This has little, this is the first one I got in this lot I've showed you, where there's little incised longitudinal lines that will keep your hand from slipping down. Another one of those prickly fine nibs with a little tiny bit of flex. And why is it a little scratchy? It might be that it needs to be reset. Okay, what's wrong with this pen? This will maybe be typical Waterman 2. Yep. See, these three belong together. They're triplets. One is a wood grain, one is mottled, and one is ripple. These three look like they're all part of the same family. 13. Is that a number 3 nib? 13s are very rare. Well, yes, I'll just say they're very rare. Has a number 2 nib in it, which it should have a number 3 nib, but they're very rare. Nice and fine and flexible. You know, was it unlucky no one was buying the 3s? This is a nice accommodation clip. I think this is solid gold, as is the finial up here, but it's just really sweet whoever made that. 14, I think. Ooh. Really neat. A few more to go here. Another 14. The stern says 15. The nib is a number 4 nib. Should have a number 5 nib. Crazy. Put these away, Pierre. Put them away. This will be another prickly fine. Yep. It's just really fun writing with one of these things. It's really neat. Okay, this is a number 5 and a number 5. Squeak, squeak, squeak. This looks like it's going to be very springy. Come on. Puts down a gallon of ink. I can see the reflection on the puddles of ink I'm making. This is a much more modern nib. It has a little hole, not a heart. Another 13. Oh, lots of 13 barrels. I only have a few number 3 nibs. God, these nibs are so much fun. The ones that are so fine to begin with. Okay, should I see if I can fix this one while you watch? Here's the before. Yeah, pretty bad. And here's the during. There's my little knockout block. Here's my little burnisher. I really only have one burnisher that works the way I like it. Maybe two. Come on, are you going to come out? See, this one has a little chip. I mean, sharp edge out of it. I have one that doesn't have that. Can I find it? There, I found it. So what you do is you take the nib out. I could have soaked it first. It's coming out, but if I had soaked it, it would come out faster. And as you see, the one end of this block is wider than the other, so you put the pen in so that the narrow part of the nib is on the narrow part of the thing, and then you attack the crease with this burnisher. Now I also have a little tiny pliers that I might use initially to straighten it if it was bent. I don't know why they have the handle way back there. That's not where I suppose I could hold it like that. I just feel I wouldn't have the exact, come on. Well, that didn't help. Well, maybe it did a little bit. It looks a little better. Okay, where's my pliers? This little tiny pliers is so important in my pen repair, nib repair business. I'm just going to try to see if I can bend them at the crease. Often what you do is break the nib. Often what you do is sometimes you have to bend the tines out and up and then bend them back down again differently. And if you flatten the thing that's bent, the nib might be doing this, and then you have to sort of bend the whole nib back down again. And in this, nib is 110 years old or so. Well, it is better. I don't know if it's going to write any better. Sometimes if I can get a bent nib, a nib that's had trauma, to get to a point where it writes for me, I'm going to leave it there, even if it looks ugly. But because anytime you try to fix things, there's always an opportunity that you can break it. And with a gold nib, bending it back and forth, metal fatigue is going to happen, and you're going to end up screwing it up. Okay, well, let's just see how this writes. Of course, I don't remember which of my scribblings this nib produced. I should have had a before and after of that. It's very springy, and it's very broad to begin with, which is not, I mean, the nib itself, but I can even see with up my loop that the points are not, oh, are they together? No, they're not together now. There's a, and I didn't look closely enough, but right at the very tip, there's a little gap which will keep ink from really making contact with the paper, and the capillary action is not going to work. So sometimes, you know, the way that the nib was before, the way it was bent before, might have had that connection, and by my straightening it, it ended up making it not connected at that very tip. Well, I think I have fixed it. Where did I mean, they're together, I think this nib is fine where it is. I'm not going to fuss with it anymore. No, you're going to fuss with it more. Yes, sir. Yeah, you like when I tell you what to do, don't you? Yes, sir, I do. Yeah, I bet you do. Yes, yes, sir. I have such an interesting life all by myself. No, you don't. That's right, sir, I don't. That looks very good. And the thing that I called a crack is an a crack that wants to be a crack. Incipient? Why can't I talk this morning? It's what children that are bullies in kindergarten are going to grow up to be murderers. So they're an incipient murderer. They're on the road. So this is on the road. There's a little tiny crease to the left of the breather hole that is going to turn into a crack and cause trauma. Now, I have a neighbor in my building is a left-handed calligrapher. She doesn't write with a hook. She's a painter, mosaicist, but she does like when she does pen a letter or place cards or some things like that. She does like a nice wet flexible nib. So she asked me for one, and I found a nib that she liked a lot, and I said, okay, let me look at it, and I saw that the nib had a big old crack in it. A big old crack. So the nib was like this. There was a breather hole there, and the crack went exit stage left. And I said, I tell you what, use this pen for free for your place cards and the one letter or two that you write. She uses it quite often, and it has not broken. And I said, well, when it breaks, I've got lots of nibs just like it. Flat cracked nibs. And I'd rather have them die with their boots on than sit in a drawer, be melted down, or pay someone a lot of money to, quote, fix them. And maybe they can, quote, fix them. Maybe they can be fixed, but I'd rather, at this point, have her use it. And she has used it for 2 or 3 years now, and it hasn't been a problem. So I hope you enjoyed the Waterman thing, Waterman trip. But as you can see, God damn it, there's more and more and more. And more, and more, more, and more. And these are the hard rubber ones. I also have plastic ones and other, hard rubber or metal or plastic. Are those the choices? More.